The Fair Labor Standard Act, that's where you're going to be, the FLSA is where you're going to have everything from minimum wage, all the different requirements that you might have to effectively run an organization. You know, like, do you need breaks? When should the breaks be? What are lunch times? You know, who pays for uniforms if it's required? All that kind of stuff is covered under the Fair Labor Standard Act. Age Discrimination in Employment Act, ADEA, as I previously, it kicks in at age 40. It is one of the interesting areas that's out there. One of the cases is Joseph Moore. He was a coach at Notre Dame at the university and a football coach there. They brought in a new head football coach, and he basically said, we got to get rid of the old guy, kind of thing. And it's not like we have to get rid of that offensive coordinator who didn't know how to call plays or something like that. He's calling him an old guy. He sued and he won. In some of the cases, it could be interesting. For example, how many of you know what a golf ranger is? Okay, so what's a ranger do?
They drive around, make sure the piece of play is going, and just kind of check on everybody throughout the round.
Okay. And do you think that that type of job should be age dependent?
It attracts like retired people, but I don't really think that it requires a certain age or certain type of person. It's
Okay.
pretty easy.
Okay, yeah, because you're driving around and saying, a little bit faster, you guys, you're diddle-daddling, or you know, you're taking too long to tee up, whatever it might be. And there was actually a case involving some rangers who sued because they were told that they're going too slow and that they're old people and that they need to learn how to go quicker and speed up the play. They sued and they were able to win. Because you take a look at what is required by the job. If you're required, if the BFOQ is you have to run between every hole, you know, and tell people faster, 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 and things like this, then you might need someone who's younger. But if they're driving around in a golf cart, you know, maybe they're taking their leisurely path. Maybe they don't know accelerator from the brake, whatever it is. But if that's not a BFOQ, you can't do that. Independent contractors, we're going to cover something about them in a second, but an independent contractor is anyone that is in control of their work situation, the hours they work, who they work for, when they work for them, the tools they use, things like that, and if they can have a contract. So for a certain job, I'm doing this for you, then that's more likely you're not going to be considered an independent contractor. If we look at hiring issues, you always want to look at the non-discrimination process. You cannot ask any questions such as age, sexual orientation, marital status, stuff like that. Can you require a test? Yes, you could say, can you lift 50 pounds if that is part of the job? UPS does that, where they say, can you in fact do this? If you cannot do that, and that's a BFOQ, that's part of the job, then they don't have to hire you. Now, a lot of the hiring issues, when the legal issues come up, is that awkward transition between an offer and starting the employment. So once they give you an offer, they can demand, for example, the urine test or other tests to make sure that you are in fact like the I-9. So they might say that your working here is contingent on you completing an I-9. So you're not discriminating against them against national origin, but if they cannot successfully complete an I-9 form, they can't get the job. So you're not discriminating them, it's just part of the process that you have to be aware of. So you always want to look at when was that job offer given, and then you always have to take a look at what happens afterwards. Do you promote people effectively? Do you give them opportunities to grow? Do you give special favors? And some people get the plum assignments, like the best serving tables, as was raised earlier, and others do not. I mean, there is so much in terms of sensitivity here. I remember one of the cases, and this, believe it or not, is a sexual harassment case from New York, not California, where the woman sued because the guy was having an affair with everybody else in the workplace, but not her. And so she felt it was impacting her ability to advance in the company. I think it affected her ability to live a normal life without diseases or something, but that's another story kind of thing. But no. But it dragged out the sordid detail in front of everyone. That might have been her goal. I don't know. But, some of these cases are just out there kind of thing. Do you have equality in terms of promotional opportunities, assignments, things like that? Then termination. The key issue we want to look at is there termination for cause? Is there a legitimate, non-discriminatory reason why you're terminating them? If they are terminated because of how they voted, or are going to vote, or a veteran status, or because they filed a workers' comp claim, or they filed an OSHA claim, all that's considered a violation of public policy. And then you'll lose. And they'll recover instantaneously in that kind of situation. Most jobs are at will, which means hiring or firing them is not contingent upon anything else. So they show up to work, you're wearing blue today, you're fired. That's legitimate. It can't be discriminatory, but if that's your whim and that's how you feel, that's perfectly fine. Work conditions, that is something that we always have to monitor carefully. OSHA safety is a big issue in the workplace just because of the number of injuries and the types of injuries. In the sport world, there are a number of deaths every year from different situations. One of the cases in the book is the bad year, not in the book, in the syllabus, the bad year situation that you have to do for to module 6, and that deals with Notre Dame. They had a student on a scissors lift filming football practice, and the wind came and blew it down, and he died. How do you handle those kind of safety issues? You have chemicals in the workplace. I remember a situation when I was advising the head of the New Haven Coliseum, and it was a situation involving one of their janitors. And you have these data sheets, MSDS data sheets on all chemicals, highlighting what their interaction is, how toxic they are, and things like that. And there was a janitor who could not read. And so we had to figure out why the janitor could not read. Was it dyslexic? Because if he's dyslexic, then the ADA covers him. But his situation was that he dropped out of school early, had a reading level that was very low, and so we actually approached the union, because it was a unionized position, and said, look, this is a concern that we have here, is that he's working with dangerous chemicals. What if he mixes the wrong chemicals and it causes a chemical explosion or a dangerous cloud of gases that can harm other people? And they agreed, saying, yeah, that's legitimate. So what we did was we used, during work hours when he was paid, he was sent to reading program to work on his reading skills, to improve his reading, and the union agreed that if he could not learn how to read and identify the different types of chemicals that are used, that he could be in fact terminated. That's the kind of thing, that's the thing that you have to look at both in safety and then unionization. Unionization is one of the bigger concerns if you're working in this industry. There was a recent vote in, I think it was Tennessee, for a VW plant where the United Auto Workers wanted to unionize, and the employees said, no, we don't want to unionize. Unionization can represent a significant potential problem for individuals in the workplace. It can provide a benefit, and years ago it was a necessity in the workplace for the safety of all the employees. It is not necessarily a necessity anymore because you have OSHA and other government regulations that are in place. But it might limit what a manager can do. In fact, we have a local facility here that's a large indoor facility where there is a general manager there who's not unionized, and the employees are unionized. They're New Haven School District employees. And there might be a piece of trash on the ground, and he'll ask them, can you pick that up? And they could flip him off and cuss at him and swear at him and say, you're a this, you're a that, I'm not going to do it. And if it's in their realm of this is my break time or this is my this, whatever it is, he in fact can't do that. In fact, at this facility, because there was an event going on, he went and picked up the piece of trash and put it in the trash can, and the union filed a grievance against him that he's taking away the jobs of the union employees. This makes management of this kind of environment that much more difficult. And you have to understand and appreciate that it's part of a contract. You have to abide by the term of the contract. I remember we went a couple of years ago to Madison Square Garden and we did a tour with a number of students, and we asked one of the senior executives who's the highest paid the top level, but below that. And the highest paid person was actually a union foreman who had to be there every single hockey game. He did not replace the dasher boards, the glass, but if it was broken, he was the one that was required to authorize the installation of the broken dasher board. So he was at every single game. It was time and a half at the games. He was earning a large six-figure salary and just sit there, watch the game, and if a dasher board was to break, he'd call in saying, fix this dasher board to XYZ, and that was it. Which you might have to call it maybe 10 times a season, and that person was earning six figures because of union. Unionization could cause other issues. They had an issue at Yankee Stadium where the ticket takers are unionized, and they were accepting money from police officers to go to a World Series game. And the officers would give them $100, and the ticket taker would see the badge and let them in and pocket the $100. And then when the police officers ratted on them, and this hullabaloo came out, all these people were in trouble, but because they're all unionized and they're part of a very strong union, they could not fire them. What happened is these are people that stole from the Yankees. They were allowed to work for any of the other teams in that New York area, and then after 1 year could come back to the Yankees. So imagine you have an employee that stole from you. You can't fire them because of the contract, and then they could come back to that institution a year later and work for you and possibly do the exact same thing over again. I'm not trying to say that unions are bad. What I'm trying to say is that the challenge associated with managing this kind of environment makes it not the same as an at-will environment where if someone steals from you, you could fire their ass. Here you might have to say, okay, how do we approach this? I have to raise it to the union. I have to have this meeting. I have to have this meeting. And that could be very challenging as a management perspective.